Okay, filtering in. If you're just now coming in, you put an extra $10 on the offering plate. Yeah. Ready? 2. 1, 2, 3. We can work it out. We can work it out. Try to see it my way. We'll have to keep on talking till I can go on. Why see it your way? Run the risk of knowing that our love may soon be gone. We can work it out. We can work it out. Think of what you're saying. You can get it wrong and still think that it's alright. Think of what I'm saying. We can work it out and get it straight or say goodnight. We can work it out. We can work it out. Life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend. I have always thought that it's a crime. So I will ask you once again. Try to see it my way. Only time will tell if I am right or I am wrong. I see it your way. There's a chance that we might fall apart before too long. We can work it out. We can work it out. Life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend. I have always thought that it's a crime. So I will ask you once again. Try to see it my way. Only time will tell if I am right or I am wrong. Why you see it your way? There's a chance that we might fall apart before too long. We can work it out. We can work it out. You guys sounded great. I couldn't hear me. No, I could hear me fine, but you sounded a lot better. Now, you talk about stepping up and filling in the gap. We got here this morning, and our sit-in featured guitarist for the day, and a good friend of mine, he's such a good musician, and he's such a nice guy, Rusty Sweeten. And he said, well, you know, I could try singing that song. And I said,
Aw,
okay.
shucks.
Oh, shucks. So he's in.
We've thrown him off the deep end.
Yeah, okay. 2, 3, and.
Been away, haven't seen you in a while. How about you? Have you changed your style? And do you think that we've grown up differently? Don't seem the same since you've lost your feel for me. So let's leave it alone, 'cause we can't see eye to eye. There ain't no good guy, there ain't no bad guy. There's only you and me, and we just disagree. Ooh, oh. I'm going back to a place that's far away. How about you? Have you got a place to stay? Why should I care? I'm just trying to get along. We were friends, now it's the end of our love song. So let's leave it alone, 'cause we can't see eye to eye. There ain't no good guy,
Pretty sweet. All right, we're going to introduce now our host for the day. If she'll make her way on up here, my personal friend, Miss Brynda. I mean Brynda. Sorry, I get accustomed to those sayings. Well, here she is.
Good morning. Oh my gosh, I am so glad to be here, and I'm so glad I'm hosting today so I can take this thing off for a little while. It's really, really, really good to be here. I'm excited because this is a topic that is close to my heart. But before we dive into that, let's talk about Sunday Assembly. So for those, we have a couple people, I believe, who are new. If you wouldn't mind raising your hand. And any of you guys come because you met us at Pride? Yay! Woo! All that hard work at Pride paid off. And let me just say, Jeannie Butte, who organized Pride, came up with a fabulous idea. So we had a big orange cooler thing that you put water in with a spigot. So that was our giveaway, ice water. People came into our tent in droves, and we provided a service. And if they found out about Sunday Assembly when they were there, yay. So that was really, really a great idea. So thank you, Jeannie. I don't even know if she's in here yet. She may still be waiting for people to come in. So that was great. What is Sunday Assembly? We are a congregation that celebrates life, a secular congregation. Our motto, if anybody wants to say it with me, feel free. Live better, help often, wonder more. Our mission is to help everyone live life as fully as possible in the way that they see fit. We won't tell you how to live your life, but we will help you try to live the best life that you can. Because we don't have a deity, we draw from all sources. Sometimes it's a religious text. Today it's going to be AA. Sometimes it's memes on Facebook. I have no problem with that. And as you can see, the quotation on the front of the program comes from a person who I think most of us have heard of, Malala, and I will not murder her last name. So thank you for coming today. So let's dive into today, and I'm looking up my document real quick, sorry. Putting in my thing, there we go. I have lots of thoughts about today's theme of getting along, of trying to have productive conversations across divisive issues. Oh my gosh, I have lots of thoughts. And I told you I was going to draw from AA. I want to start with a paraphrased secular version of the Serenity Prayer. Please grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the ones I can, and the wisdom to know it's me. Yeah, I have always been trying to change. I think I came out of the womb wanting to change things. You know, hey, Mom, can we have a little more of this and a little? I love change. And I try to change myself, yes, but also change my family, change our conservative culture. I was the only out agnostic I knew in Smyrna High School back in the, I'm not going to tell you. And I've always wanted to change people's minds. Like, why didn't people know I was right? Let me change your mind about that. I even went into professions that are all about change. First, I was a social psychology researcher and professor, and then I changed to clinical psychologist. Hello, change. In the real version of the Serenity Prayer, what I lack is the wisdom to know the things I can't change. That's where I struggle. I have a hard time accepting the things I can't change. I always err on the side of trying to change things that I can't change. head meet wall. Today's speaker is kind of an example of that. I participated in a Braver Angels workshop in the before times and have wanted a speaker from Braver Angels since that time. However, there is an argument to be made, and one that has been made, that maybe we shouldn't try to get along with people we disagree with. Maybe that is not the way to change things for the better. Maybe we should give back the energy we get. Maybe we should fight fire with fire. Maybe, right, we should try to convince others. That may well be right in some circumstances and for some people. I'm not going to tell you that's never right. I noticed in the songs today, the first one, the Beatles are saying, hey, why don't you listen to my point so we can get along? It wasn't, let me listen to your point so we can get along. But the second song, who was that?
Dave Mason.
Dave Mason. The Dave Mason song said, we just disagree. We just disagree. So I'm going to kind of plant that seed in your mind that that might be a way to think today. So here's what I've found. At least with the type of interpersonal change that I engage in most, I can't change anyone. I can't. But what I can do is give them the chance to change, think themselves and change themselves. I used to argue a lot. Let's face it, I still argue a lot. I think my husband can probably testify to that. He's over there in the Batman mask. I told him I was going to call him out, so I had to. Right? I've never convinced anybody by arguing. It doesn't seem to work, at least not for me. And I think this is why. Arguing gets people defensive. We dig in. When somebody says, I'm right, you're wrong, it activates that fight, flight, freeze response, our sympathetic nervous system. And our sympathetic nervous system says, it's a fight, batten down the hatches, attack, defend. I don't know why our nervous system has a British accent, but apparently it does. So when we activate that nervous system, we're going to argue back. Argue back, argue back, argue back. Both people are in fight or flight. So, what have I found that does work? How can I provide people with an opportunity to change themselves? In my life, in my opinion, it's been a combination of listening, vulnerability, and compassion. I use that to calm down the other person's sympathetic nervous system and allow them then in a calmer state to maybe think about things and potentially change. It can be magic. I'm going to give you a tiny example. I used to start therapy sessions by saying, it's very nice to meet you. What brings you here today? Now I start them like this. I know you might be unsure about being here today. The first time I went to therapy myself, I was terrified. I was convinced that the therapist was either going to tell me, why are you here wasting my time? There is nothing wrong with you and you are just whining. Or he was going to say, we have a very nice place for you to go. And of course, neither happened. So, how about we start with what made you decide to come here today? I would love to hear about that. Vulnerability, inviting them to talk, signaling I'm going to listen with compassion. Those are things I use in other conversations. It's just that example was a nice, easy one. So our speaker today is going to say that Braver Angel's purpose is not to change anyone's opinion. True. That is true enough. I said I went to a workshop. By the way, it pissed me off. Oh my gosh, I was so angry. It was really hard, and it was really valuable. But it was really hard to listen to people express ideas and listen and not want to argue back and say, but wait a minute, you just said this and that's not really true, and let me show you the numbers on that. So he's going to say it's not about change. Yes, it is. Braver Angels is not about change. What it is about is talking across divides, right? Divisive issues. So to me, that is building a bridge. That is connecting with others in a productive way. And when we do that, we cannot help but be changed. And that's a good thing. And create a space for others to be changed. So that's why I'm talking about change, even though he's going to talk about Braver Angels techniques, and they're not necessarily about change. So let's start with reading. We have a reading today, and it's Rodney Thompson and Stephen Phelps. So if they want to come up here, they're doing a reading all about listening and how helpful listening can be.
Oh, God. Do I have to listen to that?
Yes!
Oh, man.
I just want to get everybody in the mood. I want you all to know that this is an homage, right, Stephen?
I don't even know what that is.
This is, we're honoring Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. How many of y'all have heard him? Them?
I have.
Oh, look at this. It's an old crowd. Okay.
You get over my microphone, Cosmic Cuckoo.
And you've heard, okay. And you've heard of a lot of 70s and 80s bands. So, oh gosh, we're way ahead.
Yeah.
Just want you to know
yeah.
the very last hit, you guys all have a line. When he says, I don't know, just like the skit. When he says, I don't know, you say, third base. Okay.
Can we practice that
yes,
one
try
time?
that.
I don't know.
Yes.
Pretty darn
Oh, this is going to go way good.
You know, I don't think I even have to do my part after all.
Well,
We
I'm
got-
going to be in trouble
we
if
get
you
these
don't do
folks
your
out here.
part.
All right. Okay.
Whose drummer was Keith Moon?
Yes,
Whose?
you're right.
What's the name?
Watts was the drummer for the Rolling Stones.
I don't care about the drummer for the Rolling Stone. Whose drummer was Keith Moon?
You are correct.
Where?
Where was the guitarist for the Grateful Dead?
How is he relevant?
How? He's the guitarist for a different band.
Who?
Yes.
The Who?
No. Yes. Whose guitarist is Pete Townsend?
Just tell me straight.
George Strait. Amarillo by morning.
Oh, no, oh, no, oh, no.
She broke up the Beatles.
Why did she do that?
I don't know.
Third base.
And you thought vaudeville was dead. Thanks, guys. Right? Listening, so important. All righty, let me introduce our speaker. Oh my goodness, our speaker is a gentleman named Ron Heady. And he is the blue co-chair of the Nashville Braver Angels Alliance, the other NBA. He's a retired public school teacher, high school English and Latin, and also active in a social justice organization called NOAH, which stands for the Nashville Organized for Action and Hope. Oh, looks like we have one other member. He also told me before today that he meets regularly with someone who lost their religion, I think would be the way to put it, but not in the song sense. And they call themselves the worst church in the world. So, come to the stage, Ron Heady. He's going to have us do a demonstration, so this should be a really fun speaker today. Thank you, Ron.
Wow. I didn't know. Well, just hold this thing. I didn't know that I was going to be part of such a show. So I did want to say thank you, first of all, for inviting me here. And when I read your website, as Brynda indicated, I realized I have an affinity with this group because of the group I belong to. A couple in our neighborhood announced one day that they had divorced themselves from their church. I'm not exactly sure what caused that separation, but they missed the communion, the sense of being with other people. And so we started meeting once a month in our neighborhood, and we call ourselves the worst church in America, and I think we can still hold that title because, unlike you, we do not sing. So is there anybody here who knows anything about Braver Angels other than Brynda? Got a couple of people with some not good. So I'm going to tell you some things about the organization today. I'm going to try not to bury you in details, and there will be time at the end for some questions. And as Brynda said, we will try to practice one of the skills that's a part of this group. So before we start, I ask you to think for a minute about the last time you encountered a political policy that you disagreed with. It might have been this morning on the way here. It may have been even after you got here. But think about the emotional, maybe even the visceral reaction you had. Now think about the things that you started saying to yourself so that you'd be ready, as Brynda indicated, when you got the chance to hop right in there and straighten that person out. Maybe you started saying things like, what kind of idiot could think that raising taxes is good for anything? Or maybe you thought something about anybody who thinks we need to build yet another stadium in this city clearly has way too many things to do. So those are the kinds of things that actually brought rise to Braver Angels. So if we could have our next slide. Braver Angels is an organization with a mission, very simple. Bring Americans together to bridge the partisan divide and strengthen our democratic republic. When I started this whole business about 5 years ago, actually, I had to start and say to people that, first of all, even though we were going to come together to talk about politics, the organization is not a political one. It doesn't take a stand on any of the issues. And second of all, despite the name, it is not a religious organization. And we'll look at that in a minute, because our inspiration, as you can see, comes from Lincoln's first inaugural address. The mystic chords of memory will yet swell the chorus of the Union, when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature. And that is where the name of the organization originally came from. It was Better Angels to start with, and remained that way for a while. Now, there is a video that you can watch on the Braver Angels website. It's not a hard one to remember, www.braveraangels.org. www.braverangels.org. And when you go to that site, the first thing you will see is a picture of Abraham Lincoln with one of those little arrows, and you click on it, and you can watch the video that explains the genesis of the organization, the background, and kind of an overview of what it does. So we could have the next slide, please. So the way the organization works is basically in any way possible, in any format possible, to bring people together to have conversations. We can build local Braver Angels alliances, and I am the co-chair of the Nashville Braver Angels Alliance. We've been in existence since 2017. We had some challenges during COVID, as every other organization did, because we weren't able to meet. But what happened was, first thing was the organization, which had developed a few workshops and was beginning to grow, switched to virtual format. So all of the workshops were then available over Zoom. And that opportunity, plus the fact that nobody could go anywhere, contributed to just an incredible growth in the organization itself. So that we now have over 11,000 dues-paying members. And remember that those dues are pretty demanding. They are $12 every year. And we also have over 80 of these local alliances. And one of the reasons that Brynda introduced me as the blue co-chair of Braver Angels Nashville is that I have a red co-chair whose name is Deborah, which is where that came into my mind. Because that's the kind of political balance that this organization is based on. When it was founded originally, there were two fathers of the organization. One is a conservative head of a philanthropic organization in New York City. The other is a liberal professor of psychology specializing in family and couples therapy at the University of Minnesota. And so at every level of the organization, that balance is a requirement for the group to exist. So in every state, we have a red and a blue co-chair. At every local alliance level, in order to be an accredited alliance, there must be a red and a blue co-chair. And when you join the organization, you're asked to identify yourself, and we now say as leaning red or leaning blue. Originally, we ask only, are you red or are you blue? People became uncomfortable with that, and so they were given the opportunity to identify themselves as purple. But now people don't even want to do that, and so for the most part, they choose other. But in a few workshops, we do ask that you identify, and again, leaning one way, blue, liberal, red, conservative. And the idea is that we're trying in some way, in a very small way, I think, to impact politics at the local, at the state, and at the national level. And in all of our kind of approaches to things, we are trying to allow people to access their better angels. The organization changed its name in 2019-2020. First of all, because if you've ever watched any of the programs on Masterpiece Theater or anything else on National Public Television, you will notice that one of the sponsors is the Better Angels Society. I think it is a testament to how much our organization was growing when the Better Angels Society said, that's our name. And they asked that we change. They were very in keeping with their own name, and they didn't file a lawsuit. They didn't take us into court, but they gave us an opportunity to, in fact, change. And by that time, 2019, 2020, as things were heating up nationally, it seemed that maybe our Better Angels had to step up a little bit and become braver. And that is where the organization's name, as it's now known, comes from. So if we could move on to the next slide. How do we do this work? As Brynda said at the beginning, every workshop starts off with the pledge. We are not here to change anybody's mind. And we hope that you will accept that you're not here to change anybody's mind. The thing that we do ask is that when you are a participant in a workshop, you will pledge to speak what is in your heart and on your mind, and that you will listen and give others the opportunity to do the same. What we want at the end of every workshop, regardless of what its topic is that everybody goes away feeling that A, I have been heard today, and B, I listened and learned from someone else. So, in these workshops, they are always free. There is never a charge for any of these organized workshops. Most of them were developed originally by the family and couples counselor from the University of Minnesota. So any of you who might have participated in a workshop, or as you go into one, I hope, soon, you will recognize some of the techniques that are important in that kind of opportunity to really have an understanding conversation with somebody else. In addition to our own alliances that still continue to work, offering workshops both in person and virtually, that we work with other partner groups, other organizations. The only truly formal partnership is with Citizens Climate Lobby. And that was, in fact, negotiated by one of our original Nashville members. When that very first Red Blue workshop took place in Lebanon, Ohio in early 2017, it was successful. They brought together 10 liberals and 11 conservatives to see if they could spend the entire day together in the same room, talking to one another. They did, and they ended up liking each other. So they took this show on the road, and one of the stops was Nashville. 3 of the people who participated in that workshop in Nashville are still active in our alliance. So there is that kind of core mission that some people adopt and follow through on. We offer educational programs both locally and nationally in a way. That's what this is today. The opportunity to say, here's a place where you can come and speak to somebody who thinks differently than you do in a respectful and civil way. We aren't the only organization that sponsors that kind of opportunity, but we are one, and it's focused specifically on some very important ground rules. At the beginning of every workshop, we review the ground rules, and one of those ground rules is that the moderator has takes the liberty of sometimes helping people get back on track. And we ask that you raise your hand and say, yeah, I accept that. Because these are issues that cause people, as we said earlier, to get their hackles up, to start breathing a little more quickly than usual. And so we want to keep it all at a level where that doesn't get out of hand. There are also interactions through a national network of like-minded people. So now Braver Angels is reaching out to be partnership with others who have the same kind of opportunity. So next slide, please. The workshops focus, first of all, on skills. Speaking and listening skills are the foundation of all of the workshops. When you go to a workshop, these will not be things that you've never heard of before, that you never did before. But I like to tell people, if you're an athlete or a musician, you understand the importance of every now and then picking out one skill, focusing on it, practicing it in isolation, so that when it's time to use it, it's right there at your fingertips and happens a little more easily than sometimes does when our emotions are engaged by some of those difficult topics. There's always a chance in these workshops to stop and reflect. So what was that like? How did it feel? How am I going to be able to do this outside of here? We ask questions, and that's a big emphasis on how you ask questions of that other thinker in a way that's actually going to get an honest and heartfelt response rather than the kind of defensive response that Brynda was outlining for us so clearly at the beginning of all of this. And really what we're trying to do is find in all of this mishmash, in all of this in all of this polarization, are there not some common spaces that we can work from together? So next slide, please. We're going to practice a little thing from a workshop called Skills for Bridging the Divide. Now, there's no hierarchy in how you go through the sequence of Braver Angels workshops, but this is one it's a good one to start with. It is exactly what it says it is, Skills for Bridging the Divide. And in it, we teach a number of speaking and listening skills. So the way this would work, the first listening skill that's taught is paraphrasing. Again, something that you all know, I'm sure, and have used at some point in your lives. But all it means is that you repeat back to the person the essence of what you heard that person say. You focus on the content of what they said. You try to use their own words or synonyms when you repeat what they've said. And you monitor your tone of voice, your body language, and your facial expressions. In other words, don't act like you're still in middle school. So the thing is, don't suggest any implications beyond what they've actually said, because what you're trying to do is get that person to say, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, are you willing to try this? You need to be sitting next to someone. So if you're sitting all by yourself, I'm going to ask you to play along and talk to somebody. You can turn around and talk to the person behind you, but you may need to actually get up and move so that you can be an active participant in this. As we move to our next slide. So you're not going to count off on ones and twos because you're just going to talk to the person that you're sitting next to. And let's see, one of the two of you raise your hand. Just one of you. Okay, so partner who does not have a raised hand. So with your hand in the air, you are the helper. And your job is to respond to your partner's question. Be brief. Don't give a dissertation. Don't go into the history. You do not have to pretend to be Heather Cox Richardson today and link what happened to something from the 1870s. So, and speak what's in your heart. So that's you guys who raised your hand. Others, you are the paraphraser. Yes?
So the helper might state their own opinion?
Yes. Yeah, speak from your heart. Yeah, your heart. And what's on your mind, because paraphraser, your job is just to try to convince that person that you really heard them. And you may, in fact, agree. And that's perfectly fine, because all you're doing is paraphrasing. So helper, you're going to, as I said, you're going to answer the questions. The other person who didn't have your hand up, this is how we're going to start. You're going to say, I feel like I've been living in a bubble lately, and I'd really like to know what you think about our building another stadium for the Titans. What's your take on that issue? And then, helper, you will respond. Paraphraser, what you want to do is keep this conversation going. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Are we clear on what we're doing? No, helper is responding to your question. And you are going to paraphrase what she said. Yeah? Got it? Are we ready? Okay, go. You don't have anybody to talk to. Okay, about 30 seconds, so finish up. Okay, time's up. Now, if you could have the next slide, please. We'll just switch. Give the other side a chance. So now we're going to switch. So those of you who had your hands up, you are now the paraphraser. So Brynda, you are now going to be the one to start this conversation by asking. I'm really on the fence about Nashville's hosting a national political convention. Where are you on this issue right now? So, are we ready? I'm only going to give you 2 minutes. This is just practice, okay? So, the person who was the original helper, you're now going to paraphrase what your partner has to say. So, hit it. To the next slide. Jen, next slide. Thank you. Okay, let's stop. And in the workshop, this is what we would ask. What was that like for you? What was it like listening and trying to get your partner's words back to them? How was that?
I think it's a little bit challenging.
And why was that?
Because you want to respond to what they're saying and not repeat back what they said.
Anybody else have that sense? So what's the value of doing that?
I would say understanding what the other person is saying, and not only what they're saying, but how they're saying it.
Okay, so understanding what they have to say because you already know what you have to say. What else? The value of this?
I think the value of it is by listening to what they're saying, you're able to understand them on a deeper level. And by paraphrasing back to them, you know that they've heard, or they know that you've heard what they had to say. And by paraphrasing it back to them, you can actually engage in a conversation in a civil manner.
All right, good. Yeah, anything else? Any other value into to this kind of, not just this kind of exercise, but in actually doing this?
Thank you. I feel like in some sense it also kind of helps the other person feel validated and engage more conversation between you two, as opposed to just completely shutting down and not wanting to engage in any conversation. It kind of helps the other person feel heard and understood.
Right, and thank you for that. And really, isn't that what this is all about? It also, there's a word that we don't hear too much anymore, unfortunately, and that's trust.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It builds trust when you
Yeah.
feel like you've been heard. When you have, not just feel like you've been heard, when you clearly see that you've been heard.
Yeah.
And in a non-judgmental way.
Establishes a rapport. And when you actually listen to someone like this, there's always the outside chance that you, in fact, hear something that you missed in some of this what passes for conversation among people these days. So that kind of opportunity, that kind of exercise is the basis of many of the workshops. So that one is called Skills for Bridging the Divide. The one that Brynda attended is called a Red-Blue Workshop. It's the only one where you're required to take a stand as either leaning red or leaning blue. It's a big commitment of time. It is a full day's workshop. We held one of these recently at the beginning of June with 4 reds and 4 blues. It was an excellent opportunity for people to converse at this level. But there are other workshops that are available. One of them is called Family and Politics. It's very popular in November at the beginning of that holiday season because there are families that have been ripped apart by some of these contentious divisions that are so prevalent today. Another one is called Depolarizing Within, and it asks us to stop and think, when I'm with people who think like I do I sort of add to the fire, stoke those flames and get that locomotive really headed down the track? Or am I somebody who's able to use my skills with people that think like I do and try to keep things at a decent level? There are other opportunities for participation in our organization. So if our next slide, please. We have alliances. Ours meets semi-regularly. But at these meetings, sometimes we have a workshop, sometimes we have a discussion, sometimes we just get together because people don't get together very often. We had a picnic last summer in one of the Warner Park shelters. In late October, we had a bonfire at one of our members' houses, just because we had not had those opportunities. Our East Tennessee Alliance recently brought in a speaker to talk with him about CRT. Not that we've heard much about that in Tennessee, but to try to get a little bit better understanding of what that whole issue involves. In our alliance, earlier this year, we had 2 of our steering committee members lead a discussion on the 1619 project and the 1776 commission report. So our red leader introduced the 1619 project to the group, and our blue member was responsible for introducing the 1776 commission. So trying to model that, can you really articulate what the other side has to say? We have some national and local debates that are still occurring. If you watch the video on the Braver Angels website, you will see that about 70% of it was filmed here in Nashville. Before the pandemic, we held one of the debates at that time, newly opened Tennessee State Museum. The big guns from Washington came, led the debate. We had a very large turnout, and you will recognize some of the Nashville people as well as some of the Braver Angels leaders. The Braver Angels debates are parliamentary style, not competitive. So after the initial 1 or 2 speakers from each side of the question, everybody in the audience is invited to participate. Of course, using the kind of skills that we just practiced here, the speaking skills primarily. We also are able to have these debates virtually. There's going to be one coming up on the 21st about guns again, but the question is going to be, do guns make people safe? And one of the participants in that debate will be a man who has been a gun safety activist since Sandy Hook. And the other participant will be, the other lead-off participant will be a man who is and I find this phrase really unusual, a gun rights activist for many years. And I'm trying to think, what other inanimate object whose rights do we recognize? But that's just me talking. There are book clubs online. There's going to be a book discussion later in this month about a book called I Have the Right to Remain Silent, but I Lack the Ability. And the author will be a part of that conversation. They also have film debates. There's a program called Walk a Mile in My News, where you pair up with a person of the opposite leaning, or who leans in the opposite direction, and you trade news sources for 2 weeks. You don't give up your own totally, but you do commit to looking at their news sources. And then, as the course of the 2 weeks, you share with one another what you learned. What have you heard that you didn't hear from your own? And finally, there is a new initiative called Braver Politics that is encouraging us to be very involved much more involved in the political process. So Deborah, my co-chair, has worked very hard to establish some relationships with a couple of our legislators. We are going to pitch to the legislators at the new session that maybe it is their aides who should be the ones who come to a discussion group, to one of our workshops, because they're the ones who really are the first line of defense against the contentious callers that the representatives usually manage to avoid. And hoping that the aides will have such a good experience that they will go back and say, hey, Representative X, you ought to do this yourself. So those are the kinds of things that we're doing. One more slide, please. You can contact us. You can go to the east. We have two state coordinators. Eric is our red one in Chattanooga. Stan is in the Knoxville area. He is the blue state coordinator. Lynn Heady, a person I know fairly well, is the deputy, and she has been involved in this whole thing for many years. Deborah and I are the Alliance co-chairs here in Nashville, and that concludes what I have to say, but I wonder if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer. Yes. Thank you for all of your attention.
Anytime the dialogue comes up, I always run into Karl Popper's tolerance problem. And how can I have a meaningful dialogue and listen to their point of view when their point of view is that I have less rights than they have, or I don't deserve to live?
Yes, and on the one hand, one of my responses to that is both Deborah and I, she's leaning red, I lean blue, have friends who say to us, how can you stand to do that? How can you stand to sit down with those people? So it is a commitment that you make in the first place. The second thing I would say is that in every one of these workshops, the last skill you learn is how to get out of it. But the idea is always to maintain some kind of respect for the other person's humanity. So whether it's in the family and politics that you want to say, really, I have to get back on the road. Or in depolarizing within, there are a number of ways to actually bring the conversation to a close, because there are often that point that you realize this is not going to get us anywhere except further and further apart. So it is something that we acknowledge. There are people that you just don't want to talk to. You can't talk to, literally. But of all the others that you can talk to, these are some skills. I don't know if that's a very satisfying answer to your question or not, but it's a reality.
I have two questions, actually. The first one is this. Having been in a church scenario, not too dissimilar than the sort of group we are here, even when you are supposedly in a group that thinks like you do, there are going to be differences of opinion. The business meeting and the guy gets up and stomps out angry.
Right.
Now, so what are some of the pitfalls and the absolute worst things that you can take as an approach when you're in a conversation that just shuts it down and alienates things? Like, I know one of them, for instance, in a couples thing would say, "You always make me do this," or something like that. What are some of the pitfalls? And then I got a follow-up question.
Well, the response to that is the first speaking skill in that workshop is use iMessages. Never start one of those conversations or responses with "you." And certainly never follow it with "always." Because there it is. You have closed it down. Exactly. So that's the reason for this skills workshop, in picking out skills in isolation and practicing them to avoid those pitfalls, name calling, using those kind of trigger words. The one that gets me going and makes me want to stop is woke. I've never ever heard that used in a positive way. You woke liberals, just doesn't make me feel like I want to join right in. So in terms of pitfalls to avoid, those are the things that you want to stay away from. And also trying, if you can avoid it, don't use the party line as part of your own conversation, because that will immediately engage that flight or fight response that Brynda talked about.
A minor addition. Would a "you should" statement be just about as bad as "you always"? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, just about.
Okay,
yeah.
Here's my follow-up question now. I know that you've done some podcasts during the time, or at least nationally, during the time where you couldn't meet together. And I was watching some of them, and I saw one time a debate. A gentleman was on a podcast. He was essentially a conspiracy theorist. And the statements that he made on that podcast to the podcaster were what I think just about any reasonable person would say, this is way beyond acceptable language. But it wasn't the podcaster's role to rebut that. So how do you draw the line on what is free speech in a meeting and what is considered outside even acceptable boundaries?
That is a difficult question for me to answer because David Blankenhorn, who is the president, one of the founders of the organization, has repeatedly committed to the policy that there is no line in the sand, that we do entertain and listen to all of those statements. Personally, I don't. And when you talked about the businessman who storms out of a meeting, I confess that on one of our state leadership meetings one morning, I did exactly that same thing. I said to one of the guys who was talking, "I'm not listening to this," and left. You know, not modeling the kind of behavior that is expected of me. But in the Braver Angels sponsored actions, those things sometimes do occur.
So if you were moderating a Braver Angels group,
right,
and someone said,
I would stop it.
You wouldn't let them say, "I know those Clintons are baby eaters and they're drinking blood," or whatever. Yeah. Okay,
nope.
Thanks.
Nope, I would not. I have not. Yeah, but that's me. Because we're looking for common ground, and that ain't it. Yes?
I was curious what you thought, if you thought that it would be helpful, or what the perspective is about not framing this in terms of two poles, blue, red.
Right.
I can see there's a lot of emphasis on blue-red. Has there been discussion about maybe we don't frame it that way.
Right. You're exactly right. And that has come up over time because as we talk about polarization and then we ask for red and blue, that seems to take that polarization is somehow the premise of everything. I think that's why the emphasis is now on leaning. There has to be some way of identifying that there are different positions. Originally, when this came into being after the 2016 election, it was so prominent that we were splitting apart. Actually, I'm afraid that nationally, that split's even worse. The polarization at the national level, at least in terms of the media and what the media fosters, has not, we've not had an impact on that. But the one thing that gives me hope, I say two things in a workshop. First of all, it's my version of the Hippocratic Oath. When we bring people together to sit across the table and talk to one another and listen to one another respectfully and get up and leave without having climbed across that table, we've done no harm. In our recent red-blue work, at the end of in the past, at the end of a workshop, somebody would always kind of say, well, you know, this is a self-selected group. We didn't hear from these guys, as though somehow that was important. That I mean, we hear from these guys all the time. At this last workshop, as Brynda started today asking, why did you come here? We always ask people to identify, so what'd you come here today for? The people who came that day individually, each one said, I came here because I really want to hear somebody who thinks differently than I do. I want to hear what they have to say. At the end of the workshop, when we were evaluating the day, their comment was, we are so glad the crazies weren't here because they would have been nothing but a distraction. We wanted to listen to people who think differently and have different opinions, but not those extremes. So in a way that addresses your concern, and it addresses your concern that the people who are so intolerant do not choose to be a part of this search for common ground. That's how it is.
I have a question for both you and us, which is, I wonder if Braver Angels would be interested in having a workshop about separation of church and state, where maybe we don't divide into red and blues, but we divide into the church and heathens. And would we be interested in that?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah.
All my friends are heathens.
Yeah, I did think about that when I read on your website that you profess that you are atheists and godless heathens, but I came anyway. The thing is that in a debate, that's not a red-blue thing. Here's a topic, and there are going to be multiple sides. And so after we start that conversation, it can also be done as a town hall. It can be done as a common ground workshop. There are multiple opportunities to take a topic and talk it through with different perspectives, even though almost everybody would be from the same side to start with. But even within a homogeneous group, there will be variations. And, gradations. How far do we go? Do we not let in ex-Catholics, or do we let them come too? That sort of question. Church and state has been a big conversation, a big topic. And so, yeah, those kinds of things. Deborah and I are eager to do that. Because really, kids, this is what it's about. Braver Angels is not a political organization, it's not a religious organization, but it is a patriotic one, because we think there is something about all of this that ought to be maintained.
Thank you so much. All righty. So, I think we have a lot to think about for our moment of mindfulness. So we will do that now.
hard to take. find it hard to tell you. I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you. I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Enlarging your world. Mad world. Mad world. Mad world. Mad
Thank you, Stephen and the UnNamed Band. And thank you again, Ron Heady. I thoroughly enjoyed that. So we next should be doing our Trying My Best, but unfortunately, Julia Crump couldn't be here today, and so we're going to move on to announcements. Alrighty, so I think for our first announcement, I'm going to invite Patrick Horst up here to talk about NanoCon.
Hey, everybody. Oh, this one, wrong one. Here we go, much better. Hi, everybody. Hey. Good news. This is the third time we've had an announcement about NanoCon. Guess what? Good news, it's the last. Because NanoCon is in 3 short weeks. For anybody who might not be familiar about NanoCon, it's a conference that happens here in the Nashville area once a year, and it's awesome. And I'm super excited about this. There's, if you can't tell from the slide, the last 2 speakers that we've had here, Dave Warnock and Dr. Marissa Richmond, are going to be in, participating and speaking and so forth. And man, today's content was so great. Thank you, Ron. Might even make it a third. Invite you if you'd be available. But so just a couple things real quick. In case you haven't checked the website recently, nanocon.rocks. There's a lot of new content, including, slide please, a workshop by this guy. So come out, support Steven, and hear some awesome tunes by the Upbeat Atheist. It's going to be a really cool and really fun event. I'm so excited. It's action-packed. Also, next slide. This is a special invitation only for the people who are, participate in Sunday Assembly and in this room, but a bunch of us actually have, courtesy of Georgia Phelps, there's going to be like a bunch of people hanging out there right across from the venue. It's about 45 minutes west of town. So we're going to be having like a pre-party Friday night. Come hang out. A bunch of the speakers are going to be invited. Can't make any promises, but if you want to hang out with some really fun, exciting folks, this is going to be the place to do it. Get with Georgia for details. And last but not least, next slide. If we could, just so you guys know, there is going to be a table promoting Sunday Assembly, reaching out, meeting other people. If you enjoy what's going on here and you would like to talk with people about Sunday Assembly, that would be a great chance to do it. And last but not least, now we're coming down to the wire with being only 3 weeks out. We're down to our last 50 tickets left, and it's guaranteed to sell out. So if you're kind of sitting on the fence and putting it off, but you want to get your tickets, now's your last chance because it is going to be maxed out. So anyways, that's it. See you then.
All righty. So further announcements. We have a pool party coming up. Yay! So instead of a picnic this month, because it's been so darn hot, as long as the weather cooperates, so you're going to have to look on Meetup. And if you RSVP, I will send out emails and post that morning if it's happening or not. So if the weather's bad. But pool party at my house, come. Everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome. We'll just have a good time. Bring some food that you want to share. I think that's all you need to know. The address is on the meetup website. So everybody is welcome to that. Any other events coming up that I need to announce? Obviously, next month's assembly. And, next month's assembly is August 14th. And I've forgotten the theme. I know the theme. Black holes. Black holes. We're talking about black holes. Black holes. Right? Who can resist? Get it? You can't resist a black hole. Okay, I'll stop. Pardon?
Being drawn in even now.
Right, Stephen? So, contribute to our 100% volunteer-led organization community. Please pass the hats. You may notice that some of us have these cool kids green name tags. That's because we're contributing members through the website. We are sustaining members. That's what we are. So we can set it and forget it, have a monthly donation at the website. We also have a QR code because we're just that cool, where you can make a one-time donation. And you can also put something in the hat if you feel so moved today. Nobody gets paid except our speaker. That's it. The rest of us, all volunteers. Next slide. Get involved. Get involved. The very first time I came to Assembly, and some of you have heard this story, I was like, oh my goodness, look there. It's a chance to get up on stage. So I immediately became involved in Wonder More. That's the committee that plans the assemblies. We meet online. We meet late at night. Well, late to me, 7:30. That's late. I'm old. That's late. You can also get involved with production. You would talk to Jason Panks. Jason Panks, raise your hand wherever you are. Oh, he's in the back. Music, Stephen Phelps. Live Better, that's the social committee. Chaired by me. Who would have thunk it? Social committee. Honestly, why would you put an extrovert in charge of the social committee? I don't know, but we did. Help Often, Stephen Phelps, and he wants it to be pointed out that he is interim, i.e. acting, i.e. please someone take over. And Help Often arranges for our events where we help other people, where we help in the community. And he's got these nifty vests we wear, and it's all very cool. Wonder More, the head is Josh Brown. And promotion is Jeannie Butte in the back, who you met up front. Raise your hand, Jeannie, or Jason Panks, also in the back. So if you would like to be part of promotion and publicity, we would love to have you. Okay, next slide. NanaCon again. Did you know NanaCon is July 30th? It's coming up. Closing thoughts. Oh, NanaCon stands for the Nashville Nuns Convention. Not nuns as in, but nuns as in none of the above, right? We are breaking the habit. That was Stephen's joke. Don't blame me. That was Stephen's joke. I just repeated it. Okay, closing thoughts. Again, so many thoughts, lots of thoughts. But Stephen said something when he was talking about, what are the things you don't do? Oh my goodness, yes. Attacking, right? You always. Getting angry, never works, just gets people's fight or flight response right, activated. Stonewalling. Do you know what that is? Getting quiet, not answering texts, not responding. walking away and staying away for too long. Sometimes we need to walk away to calm down, right? But just to cut off communication, stonewalling, another bad one. So that inspired me to maybe tell you guys what I have learned to do. Because like I said, I argue a lot. So I'm going to tell you a story about me and my husband. Every single argument we have ever had, except maybe one or two, starts like this. He does something that I do not like. I say, "Why'd you do that? I don't like that. I've told you not to do that. I've asked you not to do that. Why aren't you going to do that? What am I going to have to say to get you to quit doing that or to do that," right? You understand it goes, yeah. So it's either something he's done or something he hasn't done that pisses me off. And then, of course, how does he respond? Does he like being addressed that way? No. Does he probably get defensive? Yes. Yes, he does. Thank you, whoever that was over here. Yes, he does. Right? So now what are we doing? We're in that, right? So here's what I've learned. I have to go to the person, in this case, Brandon, and I have to say, I am sorry that I attacked you, raised my voice, didn't listen, whatever I did wrong. Now, sometimes I think we can all agree that probably what I did wrong was 5% of the problem. And what he did wrong was 95% of the problem, right? Yes, absolutely. But no matter what percentage I think it is, that is what I have to lead with. Now, what do most people lead with? We need to talk about what you did wrong. Now, I apologize for what I did wrong. And not name it, not just whatever I did. Have you been on the receiving end of a "I'm sorry for whatever I did" apology? Right? What do we say to those apologies? That's what we say to those apologies. Those are not apologies. I am sorry I raised my voice. I am sorry I got angry. I am going to try next time not to do that again. Notice, apology, I know how I hurt you, and here's what I'm going to do about that. And then, now that I've been vulnerable and said my apology and meant it, you wait. And if you've done this well, and if the other person is as healthy as my husband, which is not always the case, you will hear back, "I'm sorry for what I did too. I know I should have cleaned the litter box." What? Most of our fights are about litter boxes? Just because we have 6 cats doesn't mean we fight about litter boxes. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But apologize, be vulnerable, and then hope that the other person will do the same. Right? We're using the same principle. If you attack, they attack. If you be vulnerable and apologize, they may be vulnerable and apologize. Nice, huh? All righty. Thank you for indulging me today. I've had the best time. I hope you have too. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I offered a money-back guarantee on today's assembly. So if anybody would like a refund for the price they paid to come today, that ticket price, I'd be happy to refund that if you did not enjoy yourself. And we are going to close with a couple of songs with the band. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Brynda. We were talking about NanaCon just a few minutes ago. I don't think that this was mentioned, but it should be. As a sponsor for NanaCon, Sunday Assembly gets a few tickets to dole out, and we still have some of those. So if you wanted to go, but you need a little assistance with that, or maybe you want to say, I'll volunteer manning the table or something for a while, you can just come see me today afterwards and put you on the list. Probably be a first come, first serve, first volunteer, first up, that sort of a thing, and we'll hook you up with Patrick over there, and he can get those tickets for you. All right. Are we ready? 2 and 3 and 4 and
If I could turn the page in time, then I'd rearrange just a thing or two. Close my eyes. But I couldn't find a way, so I'll settle for one day to believe in you. Tell me lies.
tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies.
Tell me lies.
Oh no, no, you can't disguise. You can't disguise. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Although I'm not making plans, I hope that you understand the reason why. Close your eyes. No more broken hearts. We're better off apart. Let's give it a try. Tell me lies.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies.
Tell me lies.
Oh no, no, you can't disguise. You can't disguise. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. If I could turn the page in time, then I'd rearrange just a day or two. Close my eyes. I couldn't find a way, so I'll settle for one day to believe in you. Tell me lies. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies.
Tell me lies.
Oh no, no, you can't disguise. You can't disguise. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies. Oh no, no, you can't disguise. You can't disguise.
Tell me lies.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we're really going to need your help on this next one, because the person that we had scheduled to sing this one, Mr. What's his name? The guy on Green Acres. Mr. Haney. Yeah, Mr. Haney. Mr. Douglas. Yeah, the guy we had scheduled to sing this one is a tenor. And do you think I'm a tenor? Well, no, I'm not.
No,
But
you're
I'm
a
not.
soprano.
Thank you. But I'm not going to sing it in that low octave, so really sing loud on this one. You'll hear the screeches, and you'll know that's where you need to be singing, okay? words look like gibberish. Don't think me unkind. Words are hard to find. They're only checks I've left unsigned. From the banks of chaos in my mind. Here we go. Have words to thank for their positions. Words that scream for your submission. No one's jamming their transmissions. All right, thank you. We got one more song, and we want to use this opportunity, if we could, to make a little video that we are going to send out to Oakland, California. We have an international conference coming up there soon. So if we could maybe just get everybody up to the front of the stage, maybe stand right here. And when we sing this last song, we'll just video this last little song. And then at the end of it, you can just say, "Hello, Oakland!" Not third base this time. So don't get that wrong. So when we get to the end, just say, "Hello, Oakland." And yeah, I know it's kind of weird to have your masks on, but that's okay. We're conscientious, science-abiding. And you probably know this one. If you don't know this one because you haven't been here, that's okay. Just look at those words in front of you and sing the best you can. It's kind of our traditional closer. We'll just go through it one time. Who's going to be, are you shooting the video over here then? Can you get a pretty good line of folks here? Okay?
Or can you back it up?
We got a professional videographer. Don't try this at home, folks. Don't try this at home. He's got us, okay? All right, 2, 3, 4. One time through. Here we go. I believe in good. Oh, I believe in good. I believe in being good and doing good just for goodness sake. It makes the whole world better. Good is great, and I believe in harmony. Respect for all humanity. I believe that we will find the only truth we need. Living this one life by this one creed. I believe in good. 3 more of those. I believe in good. 2 more of those. I believe in good. Last time. I believe in good. Okay. Hello, Oakland! And thank you. Yay! Now you're movie stars. You're all movie stars. You're going to California. Hit it big time. Thank y'all for being here. See you next time.